I remember one of the sort of senior CEOs of one of the big banks at that time. So two or three people were junior to him, wanted to run a cross-cultural training program within the bank. And he was like, I really don't think, he says, I've worked in so many places around the world and things like that.
Hello, my friend. Welcome to Bold Conscious Connections. My name is Raju Panjwani, and I'm just thrilled to have you here. So this channel is dedicated to exploring the journeys of visionary leaders, entrepreneurs, who really dare to follow their dreams, their passions, and create really impactful businesses. So if you're looking to become an entrepreneur or otherwise seeking inspiration to elevate your career, well, you're in the right place, my friend. Let me say, why do I do this? It's because, like you, I had a career over 25 years, and at some point, my desire to follow my own path just took over, and I quit my job about 20 years ago now. So on this channel, what I do is we delve into strategies, mindsets, stories behind the success of those that have done this before, like I have. So what I want you to do is hit the subscribe button, tap the notification bell, and join us on this exciting journey towards living boldly and consciously. So now let me just dive into this episode with you. My guest today is Lina Bilkha, who's a seasoned expert in diversity and inclusion. Over 30 years of experience across, India, the UK, Indonesia, Europe. I can just go on and on. I've known you for so many years, Lina. Your bio is so long, I'm going to put it all in the show notes. But I'm going to say that you covered areas like intercultural coaching, executive coaching, high performance team building. You've coached over 5,000 senior managers across all these different nationalities. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Raju. Thank you so much for the invitation and for getting me on the show. And it's great to sort of reconnect with you after all these years. Wonderful that you're doing this. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to being on it.
Well, here we are.
Yeah.
So you're okay with just me going through some of these questions, and there's a rapid fire at the end, okay?
Right. Perfect.
So, all right. So I often ask my guests, there's all the accolades and all the awards and all the wonderful successes they've had in the external world, Lina. So people talk about what people do, but I'd like to ask people, who are you, Lina?
I want to talk about two things that I am, really. One is, very often when I run my sessions and I meet people, I call myself Learner Lina, because I'm always sort of learning, I'm growing, and I have a little bit of a growth mindset, and I always sort of tend to say, I don't know about this, so let's go a little deeper. And then I'm a people's person. So I think both goes hand in hand, because I learn so that I can give back, so that I can help people, whether it's in my personal life, in my professional life. So I think I'm a people's person and I'm a learner. And if I looked, I know you've put all my career sort of stuff up in my bio, but if I tell you something that, sort of an ordinary person started off, if I looked at my career trajectory, only due to learning, purely,
The desire to learn,
desire to learn, desire to constantly, and it so happened that the things that I learned sort of became the thing in 5-10 years time. So it was like, and I was already a little ahead of the curve. It just by chance, professionally, But so I'll just tell you, so I started my life as a professor. I was teaching languages at Bombay University. I was teaching German and linguistics. I was fascinated by this. And as you know, then I got married, and my husband's a cricketer. So we sort of pretty much traveled the globe, and I sort of met all these wonderful people and celebrities, and connected with them, and I had a family. Then I said, no, I want to get back. And then I moved into the corporate field. By the 1990s, India was opening up. And so I went in, I started teaching languages. And then I started sort of, then brought in the culture element along with the language. It was just not the language, like somebody was interested in doing Hindi with me, like CEOs, CXOs of various foreign banks and companies that had come into India. So I was
Mhm.
bringing in the cultural element, and then I sort of went and got myself trained at the Intercultural Business Institute, Netherlands, seeing what is it, that I'm missing, that I need to know more of. Is there a system? Because I'm very sort of, I like plans and I like processes and I like to know that I'm not missing out anything. And so on and so forth. And people said, oh, you're great at coaching. And you know how it is in India. We're used to that quota coaching classes for IIT and stuff like that. I said, what's coaching? That kind of thing. So I said, what is it? So I started sort of researching it, just purely for myself, just sort of as growing, and then I came across various coaching institutions in the UK. So I did life coaching, I did executive coaching, I did gestalt coaching, carried on doing that. Then global company came in, I
And
set
then
up
you
an
did.
HR company, so on and so forth. So I've always looked at it from the point of view of learning, growing, and then I'm really a people's person. Sort of
Hmm.
whether it's friends, children, or clients, or anyone. People feel that they can open up, they can ask me stuff, I can help them, and I really enjoy that.
Maybe we can do that offline afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
I know. So you're saying it because of your learning ability and need and desire is why you pivoted and kept going and
Yeah.
stacking into different situations. I mean, do you consider yourself an entrepreneur? What do you consider yourself as?
Yeah, I
Uh,
think I started off very much so. I started off like just, doing the regular thing like being a professor, you know. And for me, it was sort of a regular thing. And then when I started moving out and going into the corporate world, I was an entrepreneur starting off. And then when I went more and more into the culture bit, I had a business partner in that, a Dutch British lady, and we sort of traveled. That's why you read so much about our travel, because we traveled all around Europe, helping building teams and
Mhm.
things like that. So, it sort of grew. Then, setting up a bigger company after that and a
Mhm.
bigger one, and so on. So, yes, I think very much as an entrepreneur, like a startup person, but then who sort of settled down, and then others came to me. So I sort of got more and more under my belt, so as to say. Mm,
So we've talked about bold and conscious. Everything I do is all about that. So
yeah.
what does bold mean to you when I say that? Because you're very humble to say that you're learning Lina, and I think you are. But it requires courage, right? So you make it sound so easy. You went from one thing to another, but then you pivoted into that. I'm learning. I'm learning about this language and culture and certifications. That's true. That's your gene. That's your core. Did you feel like you were taking some extra bold steps somewhere along the way?
Yes, I did actually. And I mean, I think we women very often suffer a little bit with this imposter syndrome. So I have to be very
Mhm.
honest and out there about it.
Sure.
I did, and I do still sometimes on occasion suffer from this imposter syndrome. So while I was bold enough and I had the strength within me, and I had, people encouraging me to say, I mean, there were some CEOs and CXOs who came into India and he said, wow, you've got such a great style for this. And why don't you do this? And I would sort of take them up on it. But at
Right.
some point, we women do suffer from this little imposter syndrome. And I said, am I good enough? Would I be able to do it? But obviously it worked, to some extent. And I wouldn't say the imposter syndrome has gone away. I mean, I talk to so many women and I work in women's development and women's leadership, whether they're doctors, lawyers, whoever, and we all still suffer quite a lot with this imposter syndrome. And
You
I
think
tell
it's
them all,
you
so
think
am
it's the
I.
bailiwick of women only? God, men. It's a human
Hmm.
condition. We're just
It is human condition, but I think women in particular,
hmm.
and I think women in India sometimes, at least the time when I was growing up, we were not sort of groomed and brought up to take on big careers for ourselves.
Yeah.
And so when you did get in and you did, we were encouraged to be educated. Families like mine was all about educating girls and
Yeah.
educating women. That was very important. But when you went into education, it wasn't like for a career. It was like a good thing to
To
have.
have it. Yeah.
And so when you got into this career thing, you sort of worried a little bit. Yes, the imposter syndrome is pretty much everywhere. But I
Sure.
think men sort of bulldoze their way through it. Women are, you
Yeah.
know, sort
But
of.
I do acknowledge the fact that women in India, I mean, maybe not as much, but certainly it's a bigger challenge, right? Because the expectations are so different. So since you work so much in the cultural space, right?
Yeah.
How do you help leaders? I mean, how do you know that they need to navigate the complexities? They may not even think that there is complexity. I travel the world. I'm such and such. Going from New York to Tokyo. Why do I
Sorry,
need?
I missed that a little bit, Raju. You said, how do you what?
So how do you help them navigate? Because they might be in this mode that I travel the world. I can go live anywhere for 2 years as an expat, right?
Yeah.
So the complexities are there. I know I've been there. Even coming to India for me was a big challenge because I
Mhm.
didn't know anything about India when I first arrived in the mid 90s, even though I was born there. So talk a little bit about an example or two, or just how do you help them navigate?
Yeah, sure. So I'll tell you. So, I remember one of the sort of senior CEOs of one of the big banks at that time. So two or three people were junior to him, wanted to run a cross cultural training program within
Hmm.
the bank, and he was like, I really don't think, he says, I've worked in so many places around the world and things like that. And anyway, so everybody encouraged him to come to this, and he was very supportive. It's not that,
Hmm.
he said, I just fit in. I look at everything from similarities. And I think that that's really the slipping point. Because
Yeah.
if you look at everything from similarities, then you're going to be sort of disappointed when there are differences. And in
Right.
fact, at the session itself, there were a whole load of, expats, and there were, of course, a bunch of very senior Indian
Hmm.
leaders. And there was obviously a kind of sort of a mismatch that was going on, and they were sort of, the expats were sort of on one side, and so the first thing we did is, I said, like, everybody sit around everywhere, and etc., etc. And that's when the problem sort of started coming out, in the way we were facilitating the program and things like that. And then he said, really? Then later on, he rang me up after the session, and he said, I always looked at it, that, oh, we are so similar. But he said, I said, it's just, there's a different way of doing things. You come into an office which has been set up exactly like the office, say in London or in New York or something
Yeah.
like that, because those are the sort of the norms and,
Yeah.
the specs that are given. But that doesn't necessarily mean that people who are in there are like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's sort of quite important. And then, it sort of makes for like a lot of robust team building. It makes
Yeah.
for robust, people to sort of start trusting you, because, the mistrust starts at that point when you don't
Right.
understand each other and things like that. So I think it's important. I don't think it's important that people become Indian or become German or something like that, but definitely understand, where is this coming from? What was the history? I mean, I sort of tended to cover things like, what was the history? What was the geography? What really happened there? Why are people in this? So it gives you sort of that deeper background.
Right.
And, you get to, when you understand the social context, and you start understanding a lot more things. And you say, this guy just can't take decisions, and then you say, okay, he has come from a society where even his bride was chosen by his father and his mother.
Mm.
So, and now you've come there and you're suddenly giving him, so take decisions. He said, do it in a different way,
Right.
modify it. I'm not saying people who are from here can't take decisions, but modify it, encourage them. And we work quite a lot. I've worked all around the world actually on this, and it was great. It was fantastic, real
So
learning.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
what's the flip side? What has been an example or two of some really challenging clients you had where it just does not work?
Oh, wow. Challenging client, somebody who felt they absolutely didn't need it. I remember we were running programs once in Netherlands and in London, and some sort of, and the Indian lot. And he said, they've just got to do it our way.
Our way?
Our way. They've just got to do it our way. We are the principals. It's got to be our way. I don't want to listen to this. We don't want to listen to all this that's going on. They've just got to learn that this is our way and that's the way they have to do it. So when there's sort of rigidity, but that JV broke up pretty soon after that.
Right.
So that was like in 90s, when companies were coming into India, when people would spend millions and billions on
Mhm.
JVs, but they wouldn't take the time to understand each other and each other's cultures, which was sort of a nominal amount.
Hmm.
and normal amount of time as well. And
Hmm.
so many JVs went down the tube. But
Sure.
then after that,
In-
mm,
Including the one I worked on. But that's
yeah,
how it works.
right, right. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, as you know, my late wife was in the same business as you in terms of
That's right.
intercultural, and
That's
she straightened me out in terms of
right.
you not understand your own culture, and I go, no, I.
Yeah, she was
So
so
so that
interested. That's how
yeah,
I met her. She was a client of mine, actually,
right, right.
first. Yeah, yeah, before we got friendly. Yeah, right.
So well, that brings me to in the audience here, for instance, I often see people who are Indian or of Indian origin, like me. I mean, I live in the U.S., but some of them maybe have an aspiration. Some maybe they want to be entrepreneurs, maybe they're corporate executives, but go, okay, I need to learn. So they have the skill sets that are being taught in the corporate environments, but there is a cultural element that's not understood as well. It's the
Mm-hmm.
flip is also true, right? So the Indians who have come up as senior executives have come to the US. They run, different parts of the organization, let's say a large organization. Maybe they're not entrepreneurs, but they still lack certain ways to manage a workforce that's here, or more importantly, they're interfacing with clients. So there is a cultural mismatch, right? As you were saying. So they come from, now it's the reverse side that we're looking at. What kind of one or two things that they should be really mindful of when it comes to
So,
managing?
Raju, this whole thing of this cross culture or cross culture competence
Hmm?
doesn't refer to only somebody coming in from one side to the other, from one country to the other. There are certain, I mean, the Dutch were great sort of researchers. So the
Hmm.
original research on cross culture came
Oh, really? Okay.
from the Netherlands.
I see.
People like Hofstede and all of them did a lot of research, because I think maybe the Dutch also had so many colonies, and they set
Mm.
up in so many different parts. So actually, when I went to sort of study there at the Intercultural Business Institute, there were sort of almost sort of parameters that were given to you. Like, this is typically where cultures clash, you know,
Mm.
like in terms of, private space, personal space, and, professional space. Or this is where cultures clash, where time is concerned. And what is the concept of time? Like, things need to get done a in a fixed time. And then they would come and they get frustrated. So in India, the concept of time was, like in the Western world, it's like save time, make time, etc. It's like a commodity. So
Yes.
in India, it is like the time taken to do a piece of work.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
there are a lot of sort of clashes in that way. So basics, stuff like that. Emotional. If you talk to an English person, they say, yes, we were brought up to have a stiff upper lip. That doesn't mean we don't have emotions.
Of course.
Whereas our society is that, like, you look at me, I'm gesticulating, you're, very contained, Raj,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, it's not that people don't have emotions. Some societies, some cultures show the emotions, others don't,
Mhm.
you know. So they've been told that it's not good to do it. So you've got to pick up on all these and I can sort of go on and on. Some people
Sure.
will
Do it.
say that nature controls you, and someone will say, no, you control your own destiny,
Sure.
etc., etc.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, there are many, many parameters. But I think this, when you're going to another country to, it's a common language doesn't mean a common
Of course.
understanding,
Yeah.
you know. And I think that's very important. But then that was a big thing in 1990s, 2000s, and things like that,
Yeah.
And I don't know if the cross culture, I don't do that much of cross culture now,
Mm.
but I don't know how valid it is. Or,
So I focus on, as I said, bold and consciousness. So consciousness is where I say. So when I'm coaching, it's about the individual, because it's the individual we're helping to move forward in this way of coaching, as opposed to why do you behave the way you behave based on your past. That's more of a therapy thing. So in the coaching world, you want to accelerate growth, you want to accelerate understanding, you want to accelerate depth. So when it comes to that, the opposite of the what you described in the Netherlands is that first it's the individual. This is who I am. I have not only emotions, but I have, I'm a father, mother, whatever I am at home. I'm playing roles, but I'm still one person, because I cannot be a different person in every situation. So talk to me about how, if consciousness comes into it, are there practices that you help people with, or make them more aware of things? What does it mean to you?
I think, Raju, that at every point you have to sort of start with self awareness.
Mhm.
Who am I? What am I? Why do what I do? Why do I behave the way I do? And if you begin, the first step is from understanding yourself, understanding your situation, understanding your experiences, and what has shaped you. So I think that's sort of really the first step,
Right.
you know.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you do it exactly the same way as you
This
said,
is what I do. The first thing is
the first step.
why?
Yeah, yeah. Although they tell you in coaching that you don't use why, you
No, we
don't
don't. I'm
use
just saying it's the methodology.
yes.
Ultimately, you're trying to
That's
get to
that's right.
why do
Exactly.
you do what you do?
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. What is it that makes you unique, makes your situation unique? When you start understanding yourself, then you sort of and then where are you going? What do you want to do?
Yes.
What satisfies you, or what does this job entail for you? Sometimes companies will send a very senior manager and say, hey, I want him or her to do this, and I don't find them moving in this direction. And then
Right.
you work with certain goals and things like
Right.
that, so which is sort of the normal thing of
To really
coaching.
break it down into tangibles, and I talk about six hidden senses we have.
Yeah,
Imagination,
yeah,
perceptions, but
yeah,
that's what's driving you, but we're not aware of it. It's just funny that we're only aware of these five senses. That there are six
yeah,
others, the
yeah.
mental, things that. Yeah. So anyway, that's my whole thing about energy, and that's what I do.
And what was very
Um,
interesting is, while we're talking about this and you talked about the word mental thing. So what happened during COVID was we set up another company called Emotionally because we realized that people were really suffering mentally and they just didn't know, even like people who were really self-aware, sure of themselves, suddenly had another life, that
hmm,
happened to them.
yes.
And people were really going to pieces. And at that time, I think I worked with what, 25, 30,000 leaders.
Wow.
Organizations got bad. There were sort of financial organizations. I mean, I was really busy, and that's when I got in with all the Zoom and MS Teams
Hmm.
and things like that, and doing online coaching.
Of course.
That was like my initiation. Till before that, I was on a plane all the time. Sort of coaching here, coaching there. And suddenly this online took. But the whole thing was people were really going to pieces, even working from home.
Yeah.
Like what's happening, no social life, etc., etc. So all that.
Totally. No, it was a. I always think that those are the opportunities that we have in life.
Yeah,
They're devastating for some, and there's always a positive that comes out of it. So I
that's
think
right.
COVID was probably one of the biggest positives that happened to humanity.
Yeah,
Hopefully, they'll see it someday.
yeah.
Uh,
That is, yeah,
the lockdowns were amazing to me.
yeah.
So, are we good for some rapid fire? A
Okay,
lot of
sure.
things that I would have otherwise asked, I'm just now putting them into some.
Okay,
So this way, the more things will come out. So more
okay,
topics rather than asking you these
okay.
deep
Right.
questions.
Let's see.
Okay,
I've never done a rapid fire before, huh? So have a little bit of patience with me.
just one of these
Okay,
things I tried. It
right.
works. Okay, number one, coaching style in one word.
Inclusive, easy,
Okay, so corollary to that, how would clients describe your coaching style in one word?
very easy to open up to.
Hmm. Good.
Mhm.
What's the boldest career move you ever made?
Boldest career move I ever made was taking up a consulting assignment in Indonesia for a year and a half. For a tech company, but in the L&D space. I mean, never been to Indonesia before that, and it was a very big company.
Was that
And
good for you? Did that work out well?
it was great. It was great, but I was sort of juggling family and everything else. I put everything else on the back burner, and I just said, "This is the time for myself. I made this decision, and I'm taking this."
You
So it was
moved?
like
Moved?
so Monday to Thursday in Jakarta,
And then
and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday here. Typical consultant's life.
yeah,
I
of course.
loved it when I was doing it. I would never do it again.
Oh, tell us about that. Why is that?
It was very exhausting. It
Oh,
was exhausting.
travel has got to be exhausting.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was exhausting. Yeah.
Okay. What's the
Yeah.
most unexpected cultural challenge you encountered?
That people couldn't believe I was Indian.
Wow. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
No, you're allowed to. Also, a challenge for me, like
Well,
Okay.
because you're in the business, so hey, you must have a challenge too. All right.
Anyway,
In today's environment, one change you think corporate leadership needs today, and if there was one change you could make, what would it be?
one change that the corporate leaders need to make today is just focus on the people.
Hmm. Okay.
I think if they focus on the people who work with them in every respect, personal, whatever, it's okay. We come back to that, patriarchal kind of leadership. It's not going to be like that, but focus on the people and you'll be fine.
Okay. Which is one book that's influenced you the most in your approach to life and work?
You know, Life's Experiences is the book, I would say.
Okay.
That has taught me the most. I think more than any book. I mean, that way I can say, okay, what got you here won't get you there,
Mhm.
etc. That's very important for me
Yeah.
because that's sort of been the mantra of my life. But I would say the book of life's experiences. I don't
Beautiful.
think I'm a voracious reader, but I don't think anything can take away from that. That's
I'm
the
with
most
you.
important.
I'm with
Yeah.
you. That's
Yeah.
good. What is your go-to practice for staying grounded during high pressure situations?
I think meditation, prayer, spirituality. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we won't
I
go
would say
into what that means. It means
that.
different things for different people, but yeah.
It means different things to different people, but I would say just look inward and say, this too shall pass. If
Hmm.
it's really stressed, because I went through a couple of very stressed, things with having parents who were very sick, one mentally sick and one physically sick.
Hmm.
And I think at moments, and I'm a get on with it person, Raju. At that moment, what needs to be done will be done. It takes its toll, but then
Yes.
that through meditation, through looking inward, and this too shall pass, and that's helped me a lot.
Yep. Okay, great. What's the last bold risk you took in your professional life besides Indonesia? Now that I know that one.
Indonesia was about 10 years ago. Last bold risk that I took in my professional life. I think the last bold risk I took in my professional life was beginning to coach online, because I always felt that I needed the person with me in
Hmm.
front of me, and we can sort of break barriers like that, non-verbal communication and things like that. I always felt that there was at least one or two sessions. The first session you needed to do the chemistry session, you need to meet
Yeah.
people. I
Yeah.
changed my mind. I did it because I had to do it.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think that was pretty bold, and now I think I do most of my sessions online.
Switch the word to personal. Any bold risk you've taken with in your personal life? Because I think if it's one life, professional, all to me is one. But
Raju, to come back to what I talked about my parents, I took a lot of very bold risks in my personal life especially when I had one
mhm,
parent who was physically sick and one was mentally sick, and I had to
you said that.
take that tough mentally sick person's
Mhm.
a decision for that person. And that was not easy because I mean, I'm not bothered about stigma and stuff like that. But the rest of India is, and the world is also
Sure.
sort of going to change. But I had to take a lot of very tough decisions at that time. And I don't know where I got the strength from. I had to just do it. There was nobody to turn to. There was no one to help me. But I thought I took the right decision,
Great.
that time.
What's one piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
One piece of advice that I would give to my younger self is that, you know what, you can do whatever you want. You put your mind to it, you can achieve it. You can do
But you've
everything.
done it. But you've done that.
You can do, but I would still give it at that time when you doubt it,
Yeah.
when you doubt yourself, I would say that, hey, just get on with it, go on. You can do it. You can achieve it. I would say that I'd really encourage my younger self to go ahead and just do whatever he or she
Right.
wanted. Yeah.
That's right. And one last thing. If you weren't coaching or consulting, what do you think you might have done?
I spent quite a lot of my time, right from the age of 15, in working for NGOs. And I think if I wasn't, I do a lot of coaching, pro bono coaching and stuff like that for NGOs. But I think I would have wholeheartedly really gone
Hmm.
into that.
Great.
Yeah.
Never
Yeah.
too late. Never too late.
Never too late. No, not at all. Not at all. I still do. I mean, I head up of the National Association for the Blind.
Hmm.
I head up the sort of fundraising business there for many years. I mean, the fundraising part of their stuff for many years and all that. But I would really have wanted to sort of set up, especially for women,
Mhm.
and for destitute women. I feel very strongly.
Beautiful. Well, Lina, we could talk forever. We know that. I know that
Yeah.
I can talk. So I really appreciate you in the
Thank you so
best
much. Thank
possible
you so
way.
much, Raju. It was a real pleasure to be on this. Wish you
Well,
all the best, all the success. Yeah.
but I have one
Okay.
last question, so we don't let people go off
Okay. Right.
in the vein of gratitude and thanks to everybody for participating and listening if they're still listening to us. So, in that vein, what might you have discovered in this call, this conversation?
In this conversation, oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting question. In this conversation, I discovered that I can talk about my personal life, like on air, and come out and actually discuss mental health like this on air about myself in a very personal way.
Hmm.
And I think credit probably goes to you for getting me to be articulate about it.
There's no credits we're looking for. We're just simply learning. So, to me, as you said earlier, learning is what creates
Yeah.
opportunities, right? For us to about ourselves and about others. And, we are all reflections and mirrors of each other. So, I
And I,
love what I do
yeah,
in this situation. So, hoping that whoever's listening, they get something out of it, right?
yeah, and I think it's really important because you can't separate. That's the other thing I learned. You cannot separate the personal and the professional. Somehow they get fused. And yeah, I think that's what I picked up here.
All right. Well, thanks again, and hope to see you soon in
Yeah,
the
I hope
next
to
couple
see
of
you
months.
soon too. Yeah. Okay. Bye, Raju. Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you, my friend, for tuning in to another episode of Bold Conscious Connections. If you really enjoyed this episode, give it a thumbs up, please, and subscribe for more inspiring stories and insights from top entrepreneurs and leaders. So that button is right below here. And also hit the notification bell, that thing next to subscribe, so you'll never miss another episode and any of our latest content that I post, usually every week. I'd love to hear your thoughts and questions, so drop them in the comments below. I would really love to hear more about what I'm doing and maybe bring you something that's more suitable for what you like and other things that you might want to learn about. So join our vibrant community of individuals who are out there making a difference. Okay? Stay tuned for more amazing conversation that will inspire and empower you. And until next time, remember, live boldly and consciously, my friend.